Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the City Council Successor Agency Special City Council Meeting CIP Workshop at 5:30 today. We have a quorum, so we can begin. And can we have a roll call vote, please? Not vote, attendance.
Councilmember Maloney.
Present.
Vice Mayor Pearson.
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Here.
Councilmember Orlemans.
Here.
Mayor Meyer.
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our workshop tonight concerns the Capital Improvement Program, and Sonia Agostini, Account Manager, will begin the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I want to thank you for holding tonight's annual Capital Improvement Program workshop. The purpose of the workshop tonight is to provide the Council with an opportunity to review the draft 2025-26 to 2029-30 Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, and to provide your direction relating to the CIP. Tonight's CIP workshop provides both the Council and the public the opportunity to offer their input on the proposed CIP, and any City Council direction will then be incorporated into the final draft of the CIP document, which is scheduled to be brought forward for Council's consideration of adoption at the June 24th City Council meeting. The development and production of the Capital Improvement Program is one of the milestones in the city's regular budgeting process. The CIP is prepared annually for Council's consideration and approval, and approved CIP funding and expenditures are then incorporated into the city's operating budget. In January of this year, the City Council approved the Budget and Debt Management Ad Hoc Committee to provide oversight and guidance to the city's current budgeting processes for both the capital and the operating budgets. On March 7th, City Finance staff met with the Budget Ad Hoc Committee and reviewed preliminary drafts of the proposed CIP projects that are being presented this evening. In tonight's presentation, staff will provide a brief overview of key points related to the CIP process and its finances. We will highlight prior year CIP accomplishments, and we'll discuss various current and upcoming projects that are included in the CIP. At the end of our presentation tonight, we have dedicated time for Council's discussion, your input, and any questions that you may have of staff related to the program. The purpose of the CIP is to provide an up-to-date, detailed outline of the city's infrastructure and capital planning needs, along with the proposed project funding for the next 5 years. During the development of the annual CIP, City staff will identify known project needs and submit those projects for inclusion in the annual document. There are a variety of reasons that projects are proposed to be included in the 5-year program. This could be projects that have been identified as Council's priorities or initiatives, and those projects are given high priority. Next, included in the CIP are other infrastructure facilities that may be needed for various reasons. These reasons may be due to the growing population and new development. It may be due to needing to increase efficiencies or to ensure that we maintain our current service levels. Other priorities are needed, sometimes cause facilities to be needed, such as federal and state guidelines or new safety regulations. Also in the CIP are replacement projects, which are increasingly necessary as the city and its facilities mature, and the need to maintain and keep the city's current infrastructure in good condition increases. Once the comprehensive project identification process is completed, then projects are prioritized and they're compared to available funding to determine placement within the 5-year program. The city's prioritization criteria can be found on page 21 of the draft CIP document. Those projects that are deemed to be needed during the 5-year planning period and have an identified funding source are included in the 5-year plan for Council's consideration. Projects that fall outside of the 5-year timeline or do not have an identified funding source are generally included in the future improvements section of the document, which can be found beginning on page 117 of the CIP. There are a few points to keep in mind regarding the CIP. First, although the CIP is a 5-year capital plan, the council would be approving funding for projects in the upcoming fiscal year only, plus funding for multi-year designated projects. The remaining 4 fiscal years are for planning purposes, and staff will return every year with an updated CIP for their consideration of approval. Even though the CIP is presented to council for approval annually, the CIP and the associated budget can be amended at any time with council's action. This could be to either amend current projects that are within the document already or add in new projects. Council action does not have to wait until the next CIP process. And lastly, while approval of the CIP will provide the necessary budgets in the upcoming fiscal year for project activity, please note that all agreements or contracts that are over $50,000 will still be brought forward to the City Council for their consideration prior to any work being performed on that contract. As mentioned, the funding availability plays a key role in the development of the CIP and how projects are prioritized. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to our Finance Director, Carrie Breen, to provide a brief update on the financial status of the general fund.
Thanks, Sonia. So our most recent general fund projections, which include next month's midterm operating budget adjustments that you're going to see, is for an approximate break-even result this current fiscal year and about $800,000 draw from the Budget Stabilization Fund next year. I do want to reiterate, though, this does not mean that we are deficit spending, but rather the draw will be used to fund the increasing 30% reserve requirement. Again, as expenses go up, the 30% reserve requirement goes up. So these projections include the already approved CIP funding for the Homecoming and Windsor Way basketball court lighting and our annual trail and pavement management programs. However, tonight, staff is also recommending new general fund capital contributions of about $340,000 in order to secure an additional $4.8 million in grant funding for the city. This would, however, increase the projected draw from the stabilization fund for next year to about $1.1 million. Again, draw being the amount needed to keep up with the 30% reserve and not an overall reduction in cash, which I would call deficit spending. So given those numbers, we are at our fiscal capacity in the general fund. Additional funding commitments would jeopardize the flexibility to address critical needs during the year without that deficit spending. The other challenge we have to keep in mind is we do have several high priority projects which will require additional funding down the road, including the second phase of the Sand Creek Sports Complex and Vineyard Event Center, along with the potential youth center. And finally, I would note that while our projections are conservative, there is also heightened uncertainty at this time with the economic impacts of the tariffs being very difficult to project, on again, off again. It looks like they're mostly off again, so that's a positive thing, we think, for the economy, but it's hard to even project what's going to happen in 2 weeks at this point in time. So this completes my general fund outlook. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sonia to continue her presentation.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, in the slide above, we can see depicted the variety of funding sources that are proposed in the CIP to be utilized for projects in the upcoming fiscal year, plus multi-year projects. As can be seen, the enterprise funding is the largest source of project funding at approximately $11 million. The development impact fees and replacement funds are also key sources of funding in the program. Also important to note is that the general fund is projected to fund $1.9 million for projects in the next year. Of that amount, $1.2 million is for the pavement management projects, while the remaining $700,000 is for other projects. This total that I mentioned does vary slightly from this chart above, as we are aware of one project that is currently in the draft that is going to be withdrawn and brought forward at a later date with a modified version for consideration. Lastly, we have other various funding sources, one of which is federal state agency funding, which consists of various grants. The city has recently been awarded 2 different grants to help fund city projects, which will be discussed later in this presentation. A complete listing of all funding sources by source can be found in the draft CIP document beginning on page 33 if you would like more detail on the funding sources. As you know, the city's CIP program is quite successful and the city is able to complete several projects every year. At this time, I'd like to briefly highlight a few of the program's accomplishments that have happened since last year's workshop. The recently completed Sand Creek Road Extension Project constructed the extension of Sand Creek Road from State Route 4 to Highdown Ranch Road. This eagerly awaited extension provides the additional access needed to the Innovation Center at Brentwood development and the new businesses within the area. The city also completed its annual Pavement Management Program, or PMP. This project is very important in helping maintain the excellent quality of the city's roadways. Over the past year, the 2024 PMP rehabilitated approximately 1 million square feet of city streets, and it also removed and replaced sidewalks, driveway approaches, and curb and gutters in order to remove tripping hazards at various locations throughout the city. Also, over the past year, the city was able to complete 3 different park playground replacements. These projects replaced the original climbing structures with updated, fun, new playground equipment, including all-inclusive play features, along with replacement of the resilient safety surfacing. As can be seen in the slides, each park has its own unique theme and color scheme. Here we see Egret Park playground replacement. We also had Homecoming Park playground replacement, as well as Windsor Way Park playground replacement. Now, at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Vatsal Patel, our Acting Parks and Rec Director, who will be discussing highlights of various current and upcoming CIP projects.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. Like Sonia said, I will be speaking to you about the current and upcoming projects as part of the Capital Improvement Program. The first project we have is, that I'd like to start off with, is the Countywide Smart Signals Project. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority received one Bay Area Cycle 3 grant funding in the amount of approximately $20 million to upgrade traffic signal infrastructure, replace existing legacy systems and technology, provide interconnectivity, signal synchronization, and allow for future emerging technologies for the city. The city of Brentwood will receive $2 million of the $20 million funding, with a local match contribution of approximately $250,000 from the general fund. The project will upgrade traffic signals for 15 intersections within the city, 11 along Brentwood Boulevard, and 4 along Lone Tree Way. The project is currently under design with the Transportation Authority, taking the lead in partnership with the city. The next one that we have is the Innovation Center at Brentwood Infrastructure Project. Now that all the necessary right-of-way acquisitions are complete, the city can move on to the next phase of the project, which will be to extend the sanitary sewer, the potable water and non-potable water across westward from Empire Avenue to past State Route 4 to the new Innovation Center with the hopes to attract more development. The project is currently, design is complete, and staff is awaiting approvals from Contra Costa Water District and Caltrans before we can advertise and bid the project. Our hope is the project will begin construction later this summer. Following that, we have our annual Pavement Management Program 2025, which will reconstruct and rehabilitate the concrete and pavement throughout the city. The process of selecting roadways for rehabilitation is based on factors aimed to maintain the overall safety and quality of the city's roadways, which is measured by the Pavement Condition Index rating. The index rating provides a snapshot of the pavement health of the roadway, and it is measured on a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being a newly paved road. The index is determined by a visual inspection of the pavement surfaces to identify distresses, including surface repairs, cracking, raveling, and potholes. While the city remains ranked number 2 among the 20 jurisdictions in the county in overall PCI, we have to maintain the standing. With a higher priority for rehabilitation. In determining which roadways to address, staff considers when a roadway was last rehabilitated and that have gone the longest without repairs are often selected first. Public Works also provides valuable feedback to selecting the roadways and based on observations, experience, and daily efforts to address roadway repairs. By balancing these criteria, staff ensures that streets in the greatest need are rehabilitated first, promoting a safer, more efficient transportation system for all. The current concrete project, The current concrete project of the PMP, which is under construction, will reconstruct over 8,000 square feet of sidewalk, over 400 linear feet of curb and gutter, driveway approaches, and curb ramps throughout the city. It is anticipated to be complete in July this year. The asphalt project that will be the 2025 will grind and overlay 7 street segments, slurry 9 neighborhoods, and crack seal 1 street segment, all in an effort to continue to keep our roads safe. This will be, the PMP 2025 will actually be on tonight's agenda for city council approval. The construction for that project is anticipated to begin in July and complete in August. Finally, we have our last roadway rehabilitation project, which is our downtown alley rehab project. This aims to rehabilitate the last 2 remaining alleys in the city, Parkway and Helen Myers Way. The project will replace all aging infrastructure, including sanitary sewer and potable water utilities, which will help correct and remove constraints and reduce future staff time needed for maintenance and operation. The project will also rehabilitate the roadway and construct drainage improvements to improve the condition of the roadway, improve runoff collection, and reduce future failures. The project is currently out to bid and will be awarded later this year. Following that, lastly, of our roadway improvements, we have the Lone Tree Way roadway improvements project. Phase 2 of this project will construct the remaining infrastructure and pedestrian safety improvements along Smith Road, O'Hara Lane, and Lone Tree Way, which include constructing a sidewalk, curb and gutter, undergrounding the overhead utilities and poles, improving and extending existing utilities, constructing green infrastructure, installing new traffic signals at Smith and Lone Tree, rehabilitating the roadway, and also include new traffic striping, pavement markings, and signage, as you can see on the image. Phase 1 was previously completed at the end of 2024, which included improvements along Smith Road and the intersections of O'Hara Lane and Smith Road and Lone Tree Way and Smith Road. Phase 2 is under design, along with the design and engineering for PG&E to underground the overhead utilities and poles. All design is expected to complete by the end of 2025, and staff will return at the beginning of 2026 for the award should there be sufficient funding to move forward. Moving on to our public works projects, the first one is the biosolids dryer project, which will construct a new biosolids drying facility within the existing footprint of the Municipal Services Center. The process will take dewatered solids, dry them, and create biochar, which is an outcome that results in a sustainable, cleaner alternative with several uses other than off-haul and disposal, reducing the city's burden and fees. The new facility will house 8 biodryers along with infrastructure and ancillary equipment needed for the drying process. The design is currently underway and construction is anticipated to begin this summer. Moving on, we have the fleet electrification project, which will install 16 16 level 2 dual port electric vehicle charging stations, along with solar arrays also within the existing footprint of the Municipal Service Center. As shown on the image on the screen, the electric vehicle charging stations that are proposed along the surrounding border of the Municipal Services Center. The configuration was chosen to avoid existing underground utilities. The city actually partnered with Schneider Electric to apply for and obtain approximately $2.9 million in grant funding from the Carl Moyer Grant Program through the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. The project will require $90,000 in general fund to supplement the grant funding to maximize the amount of charging stations and solar array for installation. Design is currently underway and construction is anticipated later this year. Staff continues to seek alternative funding to reduce the general fund portion. Currently, we are working on an application for the PG&E's EV fleet program. The EV fleet program allows for funds to be applied to charging stations, future electric vehicle replacement, and any electrical upgrades needed by PG&E. The next one we have is the water and wastewater laboratory project. The existing project is currently located within the existing operations building, as shown on the screen. The staff has outgrown the current space, and this project will construct a new 2,500 square foot laboratory adjacent to the wastewater operations building, which is highlighted on the screen as well. Oh, whoops. The project will also remodel the existing operations building to utilize the existing laboratory for expanded work area and office space for current and future maintenance staff. The design is again underway and construction will begin later this fall. Our last facilities related project is the Vineyards at Marsh Creek Event Center Amphitheater Phase 1. The first phase of this project will include a event lawn with a covered stage, a restroom and canopy structure, and an area for food trucks. The first phase design is currently underway with potential cost estimates for the various items with our architect. Staff plans to return in the next few months with options for City Council to provide further direction. Moving on to our parks projects. We have the Heron and Stonehaven Parks playground replacement. These playgrounds were both installed in the early 2000s. They are worn out, damaged from extended use, and outdated, so they will be replaced later this fall. Lastly, we have the Sand Creek Sports Complex with a project budget of $24 million. Phase A of the project will include 3 new full soccer fields, a restroom building and maintenance and operations building, other amenities, security improvements, a new asphalt parking lot with an extended gravel lot for overflow parking during events and programs, and will improve the existing intersection with traffic signals at the main entrance on Sand Creek Road. The project was recently awarded by City Council, and construction for Phase A will begin early summer and be completed at the end of 2026. The complex will be open to the public and programs early 2027. That concludes staff presentation tonight, and we have staff available from all departments to answer any questions you may have regarding the draft CIP. With that, I would like to turn the workshop over to City Council for their discussion and direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any clarifying questions? Yes.
I have a couple. The biosolids, is that the one coming from Europe? Okay. Do we have an update on potential tariff implications?
Good evening, good question. Yes, we do. If the current tariffs go through, it's going to be roughly a $2 million hit just coming from the equipment and materials that are coming from Europe.
So that's $2 million unplanned due to the tariffs.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question about the parks, and I'm going to do this real quick. I'm sharing my screen real quick. So I put the parks all on a spreadsheet, and I have questions. It looks like the ones that we're doing next are Stonehaven and Heron Park. but they were built in 2004 and 2006. What's the rationale of not doing the ones that were done in 2000 and 2001? Like, why not those first? Because, and the reason I bring it up is because Windsor Way was really, really bad, but that had been pushed back a long time. So I just don't want to have that kind of same thing again.
Great question. I'll turn it over to Aaron Wanden, our parks manager, who can answer that question for you.
Hi, Aaron.
I'll just talk, okay, there we go. Thanks, Vatzel. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's safety inspections that are taking place throughout the year by park staff. We have certified playground inspectors on staff. They're continued on a monthly and bi-weekly inspections go throughout all of our 100+ parks and over 60+ playgrounds within those parks. And then through public input. Throughout the year, we take a lot of questions and calls from the public and present this to the Park and Rec Commission, who review all these reports that the staff brings to them and adjusts the playground replacements per inspections.
And while I do love public comment, I think one of the things we found at Windsor Way is that they're not as vocal on that side of town. Like where I live, everyone will call you for everything over in Shadow Lake, Steer Ridge area. But so I just want to watch out for those parks that are older, like maybe review the Walnut Park and the Arbor a little bit more in the Miwok, just to make sure, because that seems like it's a long time versus the 2004, 2006 installation. So that was my only question around that right now. Thank you.
Other questions on other items here?
I had a question.
Yes.
So this is primarily for Carrie. On the, saw that we had 1.9 million expected from federal. Oh, there, that better. 1.9 million expected from federal and state agency grants. I was just wondering, do we have any effects based on federal government cutting several federal grants? Are we expecting to see any of ours cut or anything we need to worry about with that 1.9?
At this point, we haven't had any indication that any of that is at risk. I think the biggest one that we might have gotten was the project that Councilmember Mendoza had asked about for the biosolids. We were hopeful of maybe getting some money for that, and that fell through. But everything in our plan currently, we have not had any indication that those funds are at risk.
Thank you.
I've asked this question before, but I'll ask it again. Do we have any direct federal funding? I know we receive some state funding that comes from the federal government, but do we have any direct federal funding that we're at risk of losing?
No, the city receives very little in the way of direct federal funding. It's more likely that federal funding flowing to the state would then be cut off from flowing to us. But again, we do not see anything at this point. We're just not a large recipient. So, I mean, that's good and bad. Like, we'd like to be a large recipient of federal funding, but then when they cut the funding, it's good that we weren't reliant upon it. So we're still not seeing anything. We're going to be watching this. I mean, there's bills going through right now. They're working on the budget bill currently at the federal level. So, you know, stay tuned on that. Right now, there's no indication, but this is certainly something we're going to keep our eyes on, and we will update you next month. And if any of the funding goes away, we will bring the project back or what the planned expenditure was for back to you to either find an alternate source or delay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in just because it's related to Councilmember Maloney's. We currently, if I recall, contribute to CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funds through the county, don't we?
Correct. So we are a large enough city that we could receive a direct allocation from the Community Development Block Grant program. However, we allow our funds to go directly to the county, and then we apply for them. That decision was made years ago. I don't know how long it's been since we've taken a look at that. There is a lot of cost associated with putting together a 5-year plan and making sure that you spend the money for very specific causes. But as it is right now, it goes straight to the county.
Okay. I'm asking because, of course, CDBGs are one of the programs that are potentially going to be cut. So just kind of keeping an eye on that one as well. Councilmember Orlemans.
In regards to fleet electrification, when we talked about it a few meetings back, we had talked about the grants being able to cover, was that being able to cover all of that? And now we're saying there was $90,000 coming out of the general fund. The grants are covering the infrastructure and the 90,000 is for the solar array? Is that correct?
Good question. We got notified after we were awarded the grant that a portion of the funding related to the construction management of the project was not eligible for the grant. So instead of a $3.2 million grant, it got reduced to $2.9 million. We obviously didn't know that ahead of time. We would have brought that forward in the staff report where we approved the grant funding, but it's related to the construction management, not necessarily any of the infrastructure. All of the infrastructure costs are covered.
Thank you.
No other questions?
Well, I think a lot of people might be here for, we should probably talk about the wall. Just, we added a page. Do you want me to talk to it or do you want to speak to it? It doesn't matter to me.
However you'd like. I can definitely
You
give
can
you
go
an update.
ahead. Yeah, it's a new project on.
Yeah, great. So as you can see, there is,
Hold on a second. Should we be letting the public comments happen first?
Well, I want him to give feedback because they might be asking questions that. So I'm asking, just asking him to give some info on it.
If you're looking at me, the council can do what it wishes here. This is the time for clarifying questions. So if Councilmember Mendoza's question is whether the interim city manager could clarify as to updates on this topic for the benefit of the public before public comments received, that would be appropriate at this time.
Thank you.
great, thank you. So city staff has met, and specifically myself has met with the HOA and a couple members of the HOA. We will continue to have meetings to discuss the current financial situation of the city, the current financial situation of the LLADs. That's each resident within within Somerset 1 and Apple Hill is paying into, I think it's LLAD 94-1N. And currently, that's the city is subsidizing the improvements for those residents by about $200 a year, around estimate. And so we continue to work with the HOA. Here, hopefully within the next few weeks, I'll be meeting on site with the HOA. And then in discussions with the HOA, we plan on having a town hall there at Somerset 1 to talk a little bit more about the wall, its current condition, and the process in which the city is going to look at making improvements. We do have an engineer's report that says that the livelihood is still another 5 to 10 years, and that'll be part of the discussion that we have with the community when we have a town hall meeting. And we're working to coordinate that through the HOA.
Can you speak a little bit, like, because we're not ignoring the wall. Staff is actively doing things. Can we talk about some things that we're doing now while we figure everything out?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So after our meeting here about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, first of all, the HOA has the direct contact for our parks manager, Aaron Wanden, and Aaron's staff has been out doing maintenance. There was a while there that, well, first of all, we could have done a better job. That's clear. And when staff thought that the wall might be being replaced, before we had the engineer's reports, I would say maintenance was not held to the same standard that we normally have had in Brentwood. So we're currently working on maintenance. Also, any type of items that the HOA finds, they'll be providing that with staff so we can continue to provide maintenance to that wall. Additionally, in the CIP, you have a project for the wall. Although currently not funded, it's based upon the idea that in 5 to 10 years, the wall is going to need to be replaced. And we still have to figure out how to finance or fund that project in total. Did I capture anything else, or great?
Actually, I had a quick follow-up. Could you dig in a little bit more on this $200 subsidy? Is that per, you didn't say what was?
Yeah, thank you. So per property. So within that LLAD that I described that oversees Somerset 1 and Apple Hill, the city is not collecting enough funding to cover all of the cost of maintenance of the improvements that it's supposed to cover. The reason being is this LLAD was established in 1994, and it only has a 2% escalator. So as part of our discussion with the residents, I'll go through the history of when it was set up, and then really the future LLADs. All of our future LLADs have they increase by CPI or 5%. Did I get that correct? Yeah, so there's obviously, there's an ability for the city to stay up with the increased cost. Obviously, 2% has not provided us the opportunity to stay up based upon $1994. And so it's one of the items that we have to continue to work through to determine how best to fund and maintain that LLAD, and also for the maintenance and improvements of a new wall.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions, we can open up public comment.
At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on this agenda item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the council chambers first, then from those participating via Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired. I have not received any public comment cards. If any member of the audience would like to speak. And I don't have any hands raised. Oh, please, sir, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and fellow members. One of the things that we kind of question is the 5 to 10 year time frame. We feel like it's more of a 4 to 6 year time frame as far as action being taken or the wall being replaced. And we would like to see permits and plans or the funding for permits and plans, so that when the funding for the work is found or procured, that we're ready to go. So the engineering costs would be approved just prior to that, so when the funding does come, that it's ready to go. That's what we're requesting from the HOA. So the time frame of 5 to 10 years, I don't think that's really realistic. 5 to 10 years, that I think that wall is going to be probably in pretty tough shape. So that's our comment. Thank you.
I don't have any other speakers in person or hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. We can close public comments and move into council discussion. Unless staff has any response that they'd like to share at this point, we're just continuing the meetings. Okay, so moving into council discussion. I thought we were going to have more public comments. Sorry, it took me a little by surprise. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Innovation Center in the infrastructure there. I know we were talking about putting some of the funding in there through the CIP. We've got an investment started there, but I also know that we've been looking for some commercial and residential development that would help to support the infrastructure build. So I was hoping for a little bit more detail on what that's going to look like, if the progress is, how much of the progress is dependent on development, how much of that is a kind of a partnership with developers. If we could dive in a little bit more on that based on what it's going to look like.
With the line of questioning that the mayor just had.
So the Innovation Center has obviously been on the books for decades, many, many years. And there's kind of a chicken and the egg as relates to development projects. The council really, I would say at the appropriate time, allocated funds to move forward the CIP project that was described by Vatzel of extending the infrastructure. So that infrastructure will be extended to the west side of Ford, but only right to the west side of Ford. So we like to call it a stub. If I had a map of the Innovation Center, I could pull it up. I don't know if someone can pull it up and just give a visual. On the far west side of the Innovation Center along Hydorn, the zoning for that property is residential. And normally residential developers are willing to extend utilities across another person's property to come to theirs. That was purposeful that the city council did that to try to encourage this infrastructure being in place. There is currently a multifamily developer that's looking on a small portion of that parcel. It's the orange color screen there on the left-hand side. We are hopeful that a project will move forward. If that occurs, that developer would then extend their infrastructure across the purple to the orange so that they could develop. And we believe that that will be a key portion of a future development of the Innovation Center for jobs. Thankfully, I mean, we do have a number of property owners, but by and large, we have 3 property owners within the entire Innovation Center. Some of them are partnerships that have multiple people, but by and large, we have 3 major property owners. We continue to work with them on a regular basis. I believe if the project in the orange, it's not the entire orange, it's really the southern portion of that orange below the green. If that project moves forward, new development will have almost, I won't call it pad ready, but they'll have stubbed water, sewer, power, coming across, well, not power, but all of the city utilities, all the wet utilities that the city provide, and also the conduit for fiber optics and phone. And we're excited, and hopefully that project will move forward. It will still obviously have to go through the Planning Commission, design review, and then go through an entitlement project. But we're excited that there is a developer interested in developing that site. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, we did have a meeting with our Assembly member. One of the issues that we have in the Innovation Center is every project wants to know what PG&E how quickly PG&E can provide power to this property. With assistance from our Assemblywoman's office, we had a staff from PG&E in attendance, and they are helping us speed up the process in which PG&E will tell us what type of power we can provide here. Any type of user really wants to know how quickly that they can get power, and no one wants to invest possibly millions of dollars in an entitlement process and infrastructure if they can't understand how quickly they can deliver a parcel or a building to a future user. There are a variety. Obviously, office right now is very difficult. So there's a lot of vacancies, but there's definitely a use for a variety of different type of industrial users. And those users need significant amount of water, sewer, and electrical. The city controls the water and sewer, and we're working through that process, but we're really working on PG&E to be a little bit more timely. Additionally, we are working on a tour really led by our Assemblywoman's office to have both our Assemblywoman and our senator come out and tour Brentwood and kind of the surrounding areas to get a better understanding of the needs for the development of the Innovation Center. And then obviously we'll tour them across the city on a variety of other projects.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on that one? I get a lot of questions on the Innovation Center on a regular basis. Thank you for that. And thank you, Vice Mayor. Other questions? I can continue. Okay. Question about countywide smart signals. This is the first I heard of that as far as like getting into details about what that would look like. And I'm curious on the 15 intersections, what the criteria was for selection. Did we have any input in that?
Primarily focused on arterials and collectors. And Brentwood Boulevard and Lone Tree Way are our biggest.
So it was the county determination based on traffic, and I'm just trying to, for general public.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add, yes, the focus was on some of our 2 main corridors, Brentwood Boulevard and Lone Tree Way. The county, Contra Costa County Transportation Authority, they're countywide, they're looking to improve transit operations. And that's kind of the focus is we do have a lot of transit users along Brentwood Boulevard and Lone Tree Way. It works in our favor because those are our older streets as well. So this is a great opportunity for us to upgrade a lot of our aging infrastructure. So that was the focus, and that's why they've selected those 2 corridors.
And Madam Mayor, I'll add that I did meet in the Assembly member's office with CCTA who talked more about these lights, and they are going in like 19 cities, 300 traffic signals, but they're amazing what they'll do for us. And for us to be able to get grant funding of that significance is just like, I'm so happy CCTA came down to this end of Highway 4 because a lot of time is spent on 680, and so I'm happy they got to the butt end of, the best end, not the butt end, but the best end of Highway 4.
Agreed. Thank you. What other discussion points do we have?
I want to talk about the pavement. We've been emailing about the pavement, and thank you for the map. I really appreciate it. But when I look at the map, and I don't know if you want to share it above or you want me to share the map that Alan sent us. I think he was going to do it. Yeah, I can do it if you want. Share in the screen. One of the things I was wondering is if we could get total miles paved per road for the last few years, plus the total expense. I'm curious about how many miles we've done, and then also what is our yearly dollar per mile that we've been spending. But then when I look at this, it's interesting because like 2014, we did just this little, I don't know if you can tell, 2024, there's this section in there. Is there a reason why some years look like gangbusters, right? Like 2007, it was busy. So did we invest in this equipment or someone comes in and does it for us?
Great question, Councilmember Mendoza. We don't own the equipment. We have our public works staff that handles the day-to-day handling of things like cracks and potholes in our streets. The PMP is the annual project that comes in where we target kind of longer, bigger stretches, which is what's shown here. In particular, your question as to 2024, what's not clearly shown on this map is kind of our focus in 2024 was a lot more on arterial roadways. So it doesn't clearly show this. I think this one focuses more on the little subdivisions and how we slurry seal or grind and overlay certain areas. But in 2024, I do know we focus a little bit more on Brentwood Boulevard and I think Sand Creek Road and in those areas. So it's not consistent, and that's why it's a little tricky when you do comparisons at a year-by-year basis, because it's really, when you focus on arterials, we're doing a more grind and overlay, which is a more expensive operation. When you do these neighborhoods that we have here, it kind of shows when it was last most likely slurry sealed, which is that nice kind of clean looking pavement that we do. So for instance, this coming year, in 2025, we're working on some of our 2007 areas here, which obviously are in need of kind of some upgrades. So that's kind of explains it. It's not consistent, but that is our goal here, is we rely on various studies and surveys, as well as talking to our staff and hearing from the community to help target and fine tune our projects.
Okay, if we could just get that data, that would be great. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Will do.
And thank you for the map, this was good, thanks.
I have a question. It's kind of loaded. Kind of know a little bit of the answer, but for the Brentwood Boulevard widening north phase, can you tell what that is fully inclusive of? Is it sidewalks? Are there trees involved? Like what would that look like?
Brentwood Boulevard widening north, that is exactly where you said it's if I recall correctly, the north segment is north of Lone Tree Way. So that would include sidewalk, utilities, pavement as well. I'm not sure if there's utility poles out there, but if there are, then there would be some undergrounding as well.
But that doesn't include any type of beautification of Brentwood Boulevard, correct?
Actually, I'll hand it over to Vatsal.
I can add some more detail on that. So it will continue to widen Brentwood Boulevard with 2 lanes in each direction. We'll also include 2 bike lanes, curb and gutter, median, sidewalk on the east side, street lights and landscaping on east side of the roadway. each side of the roadway. We'll also install a new parallel bridge over Marsh Creek, utility upgrades, and undergrounding of the existing overhead utilities.
Most of Brentwood Boulevard is 2 lanes on each side, so how is that widening it?
Sorry, it is also unfunded. I just want to make that clear. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I was saying, most of the lanes on Brentwood Boulevard are 2 lanes in each direction, so how is that widening it anymore?
There are portions that are not, and so that would just continue extending, so everything is uniform. and
So
2 lane.
consistency.
Consistency.
I have a question about maybe sewer or wastewater lines repair. We had in the past a community member that had complained that there were sewer waters or the sewer was kind of getting out from the lines along Sunset. I didn't notice that it was any of these repairs. Has that been repaired already?
To my knowledge, we haven't had any sewer overflows getting out of the pipe and onto the street. We have, annually, there are a handful of residential overflows that come out of the cleanouts from houses, but we haven't had any major mainline problems in a long time. We do have some projects identified through our regular maintenance, the camera work and cleaning that we do, and we have some large projects that are upcoming on some of the very older sewers. We also, when we tend to go through some of these other projects, Brentwood Manor project, for example, is replacing a bunch of water lines, also replacing sewer lines when we do that. So we do those projects quite frequently, and you'll see a couple of those coming up as well.
Thank you.
And I know it seems like we're jumping all over the place. Hopefully, the Lone Tree Way improvements, talking about from, and maybe they're my notes, but from O'Hara to Tilton. I have no idea where Tilton is. How far out or eastbound on O'Hara or on Lone Tree is it?
It's great question. It is about 2 blocks from Smith west.
Okay.
I'm sorry, east.
East. So, and that's dropping the power lines underneath the ground for those 2 blocks and widening and the curb and gutter and everything all the way for those 2 blocks, or so?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a continuation of the Lone Tree, there was a part of the report that said improvements may also include a traffic signal at the O'Hara Lane intersection. May also, so I was curious what would determine if that will happen. If you could also get into a little bit about everything that's going on around the school. I know that's been there's been a lot of interest in school safety and everything. Thank you.
Yes, great question as well. That will all depend on as the school expands. So right now, their expansion is a very small percentages, and so as it becomes a fully enrolled school, that's when we will reevaluate to determine if there is a need for a traffic signal at that intersection. That's why it says may. It just depends on when that happens. And then I know you had another question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just a update for the general public because we do get questions around the safety around that school. So I made a note about that one intersection. I know there was more of that section discussing the safety issues or the safety improvements that are happening around the school. And I wondered if you could give a brief overview of that.
Yeah, so we've done some safety improvements since our project was complete. We've added some additional signage and some additional traffic striping along the crosswalks. We've also included a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at 2 of the locations. So we'll continue to monitor the area. And as the school, again, like I said, as the school expands, we'll start getting requests and feedback that will then determine the next set of safety improvements that we do. Our goal right now is to primarily do the sidewalk, curb and gutter to provide a separation for pedestrians and a safer route to the school and the surrounding neighborhood, along with the improvements that we're making at the intersections to allow additional crosswalks and protected zones for pedestrians.
Vice Mayor.
I almost think I forgot. I'm piggybacking off of that question. Two questions. One is, will this inclusion include, and I don't know when we expect to see on, maybe Tony, you can help me with this, the street that's parallel to Lone Tree where Smith intersects, it's not Bond. Big Basin, thank you. Downstream from my house. On Big Basin, when are the electrical, since we're talking about this, the city in the middle of the street, that's to me a hazard. When is that gonna be moved? If, I know that's not a us thing, that's a PG&E. And the other question is, how much money, this may come over to finance, did we receive towards the Lone Tree updates from the developments that have happened on Lone Tree?
I will speak on the first part of the question. So we did look, that is being done as part of the phase 2 design. So we currently have an application with PG&E and they're working on the undergrounding. And so as we get their design, we will be able to move forward with our project, assuming there's sufficient funding to do so.
What's the timeline looking like for that? Because as a person who lives down there, it is not, doesn't feel safe.
Understood. It is towards the end of the year is what we've been told by PG&E. As we're looking at a larger section along Lone Tree, Smith, and the surrounding area, they have to determine what poles will need to get undergrounded for the infrastructure. We also have to get some minor right-of-way acquisitions in order to put in their sufficient transformers and pads and additional ancillary equipment.
Okay, thank you. And then for the second question, is anyone aware and didn't see that in the CIP? Is that how much when we look at the Lone Tree updates, how much of that is going to be funded by those developments? Because I believe there was 2 developments in that area that we're going to put towards that project.
The first phase of this project is funded $7.6 million from roadway development impact fees. The development impact fees are received, each unit will pay a certain amount into the bucket depending on when the permit is pulled. And of course, those change year over year as, as the CPI and the ENR increases or as we need to change those development impact fees. So to get the exact amount of all of the homes that were in there, we could go back and see when that development was developed and kind of get a general idea. But we don't necessarily have to do a one-for-one with the fees. We can utilize the roadway development impact fees for anything related to new development. And in this case, we're utilizing $7.6 million at this time for this project.
Do we have other discussion? We can certainly provide direction to staff if we have any at this point.
I do have one that maybe we can talk about, but I want to add to a CIP as an unfunded project, so I don't want to make you nervous over there. I want to add, one of the things that kind of bothers me, I spend a lot of time in my district. I know I serve the entire district, but one of the issues that I think would bring more development on an old roadway for Brentwood, which was Brentwood, a pass-through for Brentwood Boulevard, is more beautification. And I think as we beautify Brentwood Boulevard, I think we'll see some different types of development projects want to come to Brentwood in that back corridor. I know it's a little detrimental for businesses to come far from Highway 4, but I have it as a desirable project that we do some type of Brentwood Boulevard beautification. If you look in that area, that region doesn't have as many trees as the other parts of Brentwood. We don't see as many art projects in that part of Brentwood, even though I have to say, if you go towards Sand Creek, the pattern projects are really nice on Sand Creek. They've just added three of the installations over there, the birds. But it'd be nice to see some beautification in that area. So I would like to add it, an unfunded, desirable Brentwood Boulevard beautification project to the CIP as a future CIP.
I know what you're thinking. LLADs, do we have the money for it? Is that what you're thinking? So I think it's a good idea. I think, what we might need a workshop on is LLADs. And for the landscaping, which this would fall under, is what it's looking like and where we're falling short and what our options are for funding. Because I think we have to be realistic about the money we have in the budgets.
Well, I said unfunded.
Yeah, it's unfunded, but we want to find the money for it, right? So that's why I think that if we have a meeting to talk about all these LLADs and what's going on with them and how some of them are short and what we can do, and then see if there's any funds because it's the trees that we're going to put in, and then it's the maintenance of the trees after that, which, yeah, it's going to be interesting on the LLADs that we're funding short on what we're going to do with those too.
I also think, though, we also should be mindful of grants that are available through the state. There are several grants, and I talked to a couple of arborists who've in other cities who've gotten substantial amount of grant funds to do beautification projects. So that'd be nice for us to try to take a look into grant funding, and so that we're not constantly squeezing turnips over here to produce some funds.
And we had talked about that in our meeting, and I think I can talk about this. Oakley has a contractor that writes their grants, right? Like other cities have other ways to have someone that's looking for grants. So we might want to find someone that's not a city employee, but someone that is their forte to go out and look for grants. And if they see if they're available, and I understand our socioeconomic overall city is a little different than the other cities, but there might be availability for some dollars somewhere. And maybe it's a contract where it's you're paid a percentage of what you get. So therefore we're gaining more than losing. I don't know how that would work, but.
And also, to your point, I think as a whole city we are, but in a district we are not for socioeconomic status in that district, so.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Maloney?
And just to add to your point with the beautification, would we be able to direct the Arts Commission to focus on Brentwood Boulevard, utilizing the arts fund that we have in there? That's also a question because I don't know the answer.
Darren and I are having a sidebar over here. So the council could certainly ask the Arts Commission to direct their attention to that area. And you would want to work with your Park and Rec director to talk about what sort of items are coming before them and what parts of the city those are already being looked at. It would just take some coordination, that's all.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm just noticing the door over there has a red light on it, and most people are coming in through that door. I don't know if there's a problem with it or not. Regarding Brentwood beautification, I totally agree with that. I keep thinking back to our discussions around Brentwood Boulevard, and that everything about that was on hold, right? The planning for that, the specific plan.
Correct. The council more or less, I wouldn't say it's on hold. It's not moving forward anymore.
Yeah.
As related to the updates of the specific plan for both Brentwood Boulevard specific plan and downtown. However, the idea of having a CIP that's unfunded in our book, I think might open us up to some planning grants. The idea would, you have this as a CIP, I identified maybe a planning grant that would allow us to take a look at the corridor. And what we'd be looking at is bike pedestrian friendly, and then through that you look at other type of landscape of improvements, and it might create a plan for the Brentwood Boulevard from, say from where the improvements are of the project that Vatsel's described of the widening all the way into downtown. And so, although it'd be an unfunded, I definitely think it would be a good opportunity for the city to pursue some grant opportunities for this project.
Thank you. And I think at one point I had a discussion, I don't know if it was with Tim or Carrie, I'm trying to remember who it was, but about some of the grants that are coming down the pipeline from the state or the federal that are more economic development specific, and that the overall income level of the city average sometimes will boot us out of the potential of being able to qualify for someone that are more directed toward lower income areas.
We definitely struggle in meeting an economically disadvantaged community, or as it relates to parks or a variety of other things. What we hope to do is that a portion of this area touches a census tract that does not meet that meets the threshold for economically disadvantaged communities. And so the idea is, if we had a project specifically for Brentwood Boulevard and it's part of the census tract, it might help us apply and qualify for these grants.
Great.
Many times it's just we don't even qualify, let alone be competitive. Like we literally just don't qualify because we have so many parks, and everything is done so well. But this area is part of a census tract that is the lowest of all of our census tracts that touch the city.
And I think it is really rather short-sighted for those kind of criteria to be in place when you're looking at a grant that could really bring up a certain part of beautification for a certain part of the city. So I'm definitely fully in support of that. Other discussion?
When it comes to, the four corners that were the art project, so we have one over by the police station. We have one coming on Sand Creek. Where are the other ones coming? I think there's a potential of one more. Wasn't it 2 to 3? I don't know if anyone remembers.
Those are the only two that are currently moving forward. There was a fund set aside that I think was identifying maybe 4. That was way before my time, so I'm speaking a little bit uneducated, but I would say there's no other large.
What's the project number? I can't find it right now, I'm sorry. Because I think there's a CIP for that project. Do you know what?
It's 37244. It's page 112 of the
112.
actual CIP.
Wait, page 112?
337-37244.
37.
244. That's the Sand Creek project.
Okay, so,
It mentions 3 or more high traffic areas. And so currently there's only 2 projects.
so how
that are moving
much,
forward.
so are we done with these funds, or is there any funds still left in the CIP?
Once we come back to the city council to talk about the project on Sand Creek, then we'll have a finalize. Yeah, Sand Creek is the one that we have not come back and finalize the contract for installation. And at that time, we would then know how much money is left inside this CIP for any type of project. And additionally, as was mentioned, there's money in the arts fund that you could always create a new CIP for another arts project somewhere or amend this project, however might be best.
Do you have like a swag about how much is left, or no? I've never asked for a swag.
How much is left in
Yeah.
the total
Yeah, from the
art funds?
786.
Oh, and the 7, I do not know.
Okay, because I think that might be an option, like, let's see what we have left in here, and then the art fund, because I think if there, huh?
The art fund did. The art fund did talk about vegetation, plants, so it included it as art installation.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe an area we can use, we can look at those to do something on Brentwood Boulevard.
Can that come from us, or does that have to go to the Arts Commission?
We would have to approve the funding,
Okay.
and then it would go through them to figure out what piece they want, and then it would come up to us for a final yes or no.
And Tien has, he's logged on and he raised his hand and he might have a little bit more information about how much money's left over. So I'll turn it over to Tien.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. How y'all doing?
Go ahead, Tien.
Awesome, thank you. So a couple questions I think I heard from council, if I can backtrack a little bit. I think Councilmember Mendoza, you asked, we have about 700,000 plus in that CIP for those 2 projects. Right now, we're projecting with the last projection we did with Radiance Convergence, and with Fields of Time, we should have maybe about a little bit more than 100,000 left over in that CIP. But as interim city manager Gail mentioned, we haven't awarded the construction contract for Radiance Convergence yet, so that's a pretty conservative estimate from there. I think the other thing I wanted to touch on is we do have annually we come to council with a public art priority list. We're planning to come later this summer, where we'll list out other locations where we're planning potentially to have future art projects. I think Vice Mayor mentioned us looking at potentially do some art projects there. We do have 2 projects that we can look at, whether that's the priority list project for future PATA projects, or what we also have are utility boxes that we do every couple of years, where we can look and see if there's any utility boxes that are on Brentwood Boulevard or adjacent areas within that district that we could select to be painted in the next couple of years. So hopefully that answered a couple of questions that y'all had out there about some of the art projects.
And for the people sitting here, the reason we say we have money in some buckets is because developers give money to certain things, and we have to use it for that, and in this case, it's art.
Okay, so do we have direction and a motion for staff?
Let's see if I can potato head this one. All right, so I move to provide the following direction to staff to approve the CIP as presented in the staff report, with the addition of a future CIP added for a Brentwood Boulevard beautification project unfunded in the current year.
I will second.
Oh, and for Brentwood Boulevard, let me specify, thank you, between downtown and Sunset Boulevard. Katie, do you need anything else in that?
If Amanda might be able to share my screen for just 1 minute. And the only reason I'm being a little tiny persnickety about this is because the unfunded CIP projects sit in the future improvements portion of the CIP document, and they have a specific format that they address. And so I just want to make sure we're putting in the right things, and we're just having a tiny technical difficulty.
These issues are with Zoom as we're trying to
Oh,
share
got
this.
it. So it's 4 things that I need to confirm. One, the title would be something along the lines of Brentwood Boulevard Beautification Project. Is that correct? Okay. The second, the project manager, and if you would agree to leave that to staff discretion so it can be properly assigned.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. 3 is the location, and what I heard you say was Brentwood Boulevard between downtown and Sunset. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the last is the description/justification. And I understood that you were looking for beautification measures to Brentwood Boulevard along this stretch in order to facilitate economic development. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would probably see us add economic development and just overall resident joy and happiness.
Quality of life.
Quality of life. Thank you.
Quality
Friendly
of life
amendment?
is easier too.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Beautification to
question.
facilitate economic development and improve quality of life.
Katie, question.
Yes.
Can we or should we add something in there about being targeted with grant evaluation and research?
These unfunded projects have very, very brief descriptions. So I don't want to tie you to anything, but staff will certainly keep that in mind if that works for you. Okay. Thank you.
And Vice Mayor Pearson, maybe if I could make one edit, could we just say that follows the bound, that actually, I was going to say to follow the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan boundaries.
Because it would extend a little bit past Sunset, huh?
They do not, no, it goes right to Sunset. It's not very wide. It's about one property wide. So it truly is just the Brentwood Boulevard corridor. I wasn't sure if we wanted to use that as an example, but we'll keep it as is.
We can, because it may, would it possibly expand it to?
Let's go ahead and keep it as described. Now that I'm looking at the map, I think this gives us a little bit more flexibility.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I'll accept those friendly amendments to my motion. And do you guys still have your second?
I had the second, yes. And all in favor?
Aye.
And no opposition. The measure moves forward and the CIP is accepted. So one more motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the special CIP workshop.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned for the special council meeting. Thank you. We'll start the next meeting at 7 p.m.